Welcome, Mage. I'm Rhino, and today we're going to talk about lands.
All right, so let's get here. All right, so in this video, we are going to be talking about two color lands. Now, we're not going to give you every two color land. We decided to just pick red and green. So all the lands that we're going to show are going to be centered around mountain and forest. Just know that there are lands for all the color combinations that fit this. So we're going to get started. We're not going to go over any of the specialty lands. There are some specialty lands that it's just a mountain with some benefits or just a forest with some benefits. We're not worried about those. We're worried about trying to fix your mana base, get your colors out that you need. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the
Worst
worst lands.
lands.
So, the worst lands, and we're going to tell you we don't put these in decks anymore. In fact, I don't think we even put them in decks that we give away to people anymore. They're just that bad. First one.
Gateway Plaza.
All right, there's a bunch of them like this. There's the Archway Commons, the Rupture Spire, which is that one right there, and the Trans Guild Promenade. Let's see, there it is. They all come in tapped, and then you have to pay for it to be untapped. So that is, I mean, basically, you can't use any land until turn 3 almost. I mean, unless you have a 1-drop on the first turn.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's a bad feeling. And then late in the game, it's an even worse feeling when you get it because it's like, "Oh, I got to pay for this now." Uh, yeah, you can use it to tap it for a mana of any color, but it's just way, way, way too slow. So, what do you want to talk about now?
How about bounce lands?
Okay, so rule turf.
Well, it does come in tap, but it's only good for one deck. Man, man,
When land
um,
matters, yes.
land matters.
Yeah, you're getting a little tongue-tied there, bud.
Ow.
I'm just gonna. All right. Yeah, land matters deck. Because now you can end up using the land that you bounce before it before you bounce this back. So you can tap it and you can use it. But one of the things we found is a lot of times we forget. And most people forget, oh, this taps for 2. And then they end up tapping it and they waste the other part of their mana on this. So it's really, I mean, we put it down really low. We don't put them in any decks unless we have landfall or something like that
Yeah.
in it. So now we're going to go into basic tap lands, and the first one is
Gruel Girl.
oh,
Gilgate.
we're doing great with the tongue twisters.
Yeah.
Gruel Gilgate, and we chose Gruel for this. Okay, it just enters tapped. Um, and there's other ones just like it, like the Wooded Ridgeline. Enters the battlefield tapped. This one happens to say Mountain Forest on it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Um, yeah, let's see. There's also the Timber Gorge. Yeah, Timber Gorge enters tapped. And let's see, is that all? No, we have the
Shivan
Shivan
Oasis.
Okay, that's one of the older ones, I believe. They haven't really been reprinting these a lot. Well, no, that one was reprinted fairly recently. Um,
Yeah.
it enters tapped. Next turn, you can use it for either color. Um,
Pretty basic.
Pretty basic. We put them in lots of decks. Um, Yeah, if we need the deck to run faster, we try to make sure that we do one of the tap lands with benefits or something like that. And we'll get into those in a moment. But before we do that, we need to talk about the most common fetch lands.
Evolving Wilds.
Okay, it's a great card. Uh, you
Sacrifice it. Get your basic, but you can do it at your opponent's end step.
yeah, so you can kind of hide what colors you're doing, unless it's commander. They know your commander colors, or maybe they don't know what you've got coming out. There's the friend of Evolving Wilds, the Terramorphic Expanse, basically the same thing.
Just different name.
Yeah. So we have these in almost every multicolor deck. Uh, it's the most basic fetch land, and you can always get the land that you need. Now, another tap land, which is a bit unusual. It's still a basic tap land.
It's Highland Weld.
Okay, so what's so great about this?
It's a snowland.
Okay, so if you're doing anything that uses snow in it, this is a good choice.
Cool beans.
Yeah. We also have, let's see, the Slagwood Bridge. So what's so great about this one?
It's an artifact land that is indestructible.
Yeah. So that's cool. I mean, make sure that if anybody has land destruction, they can't destroy this. So yeah, that's nice.
And it counts as an artifact.
All right. So we've got a couple more tap lands here, and they might, they thrive. They enter the battlefield tapped.
Thriving land.
Yeah. So this is kind of a choose your own tap land. Well, sort of. It's one of the colors, in this case, a mountain, or you can get the Thriving Grove, and that's the green. And if you want, if your deck is only two colors, you can say, okay, I'm going to do green and red, or red and green. But if you have a multicolored deck, then these are nice because then you can choose one of the other colors that you want. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility. That's why we've put it a step above the basic tap lands. Now, our next section is tap lands with benefits. So, what's your first tap land with benefit?
Temple of Abandon.
Okay, so what's it temple?
The good thing about it is you get to scry.
So you can find out what your next card is and ditch it or keep it on top. Yeah, and having information about what's on top of your deck is always good. It's called cheating. All right. So the next one here that we have on our list is the Sheltered Thicket. This is a cycle land. Now, the neat thing about it is a mountain forest. So if there's anything that says go search for a mountain or go search for a forest, this is one of those lands that you can search and get out. Now, it enters the battlefield tapped, but it also has the benefit of being a cycle land. So late in the game, if you don't need any more mana, you don't need any more land, you can pay 2, you can ditch it, and you can grab another card. Card draw is always great. So now we're going to go into the rugged. It's the Rugged Highlands.
Yeah, Rugged Highlands.
All right, Rugged Highlands.
Yes. You get a gain life.
Yeah, so it's a life gain. And it has a brother or sister, the Kazandu Refuge. Basically the same thing. And there's battlefield tapped, and then you gain a life. So it's yeah, it comes in tap, but it doesn't make you feel too bad because hey, you gained a life. Um, and now we've got a strange one, the commercial district. This came out fairly recently, based off of when we produced this video, uh, and it comes in tapped. And instead of scrying, you get to surveil. So that means
If you like it, then
you leave it on top.
leave it on top. If you don't like it, you put it into your graveyard.
So now this one, the we've been watching the second market prices on them, or the aftermarket prices on them, and they're slowly going down. It was a lot more a week ago, and it's just slowly coming down. It just hasn't been reprinted yet. It's fairly new out in this case. So once there's more out there, um, these will probably end up being just as inexpensive as all the others. Uh, all right. So our next section is tap lands
Lands with
extra.
extras.
Okay. So what we're going to start off with there.
Raging Ravine.
Okay. So what's so great about the Raging Ravine?
And it's a man land.
Okay. So it comes in tapped, and then you can tap it for either color, but then
You can make it into a creature.
yep. And then it has with whenever this creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. It's still a land. So the neat thing about this is it continues to build up those counters. They don't go away when it stops being a creature. So it keeps getting bigger and bigger. But I mean, it's less than a quarter. So it's a fun land to play with, and it's kind of a surprise because most of the time people forget about your land possibly being creatures. All right, so here's an interesting one: the Racer's Ravine, Racer's
Ring.
Racer's Ring. Okay, it enters tapped. You can use it for either color, and then for 4, 2 and 2 colored, you can sacrifice it and then draw a card. So it's a card draw late in the game when you're about ready to die, and you're like, okay, I got to search for something. Nope, didn't get it. Whatever. Um, so it's nice to have a card draw land, um, and it's a common card, easily found. All right, so we have next the Mountain Valley. Oops, that's Mossfire Valley. There's Mountain Valley. So it enters tapped, sacrifice it, search your library for a mountain or forest card, and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So some of these other cards were.
It says mountain, forest.
You can get one of those.
Yeah.
Now, granted,
You can't use it right away.
yeah. Yeah, this is one of these where it comes in tapped and then later you can go and search for it. So if you've got a tap land, it's a tap land. So it comes in tapped and then you go and search for another tap land. Yeah, it's going to take you a little while to get it out. So, in most cases, you would use this for more expensive lands, more expensive mountain and forest. Now, you could use it to get a basic land. So if you have it in your deck and you put it down early, and then you can end up getting a basic. But that may or may not work. Another one like that is also Rocky Tar Pit. It's pretty much the same thing. But in this case, you notice
it's red black.
Yeah. So you can use this to go and get your mountain or your mountain forest. Okay. Don't know if you heard that. We had a little bit of
Feisty.
feisty dogs. All right. So it's it's just like the Mountain Valley, but in this case, you would have to get a mountain or a swamp. So if you don't have swamps in your deck, you can still get the mountain stuff. All right. Now the Mossfire Valley. Um, this one, it's
Eh,
it
it's a signet land.
yeah, a filter land. The reason why we have it so high up in our list is, I mean, you can use a colorless to get some color out. It doesn't come in tapped at all.
So you can use
So,
it right away.
yeah. Um, and you know, you pump one in and you get two out. So, you know, this isn't as confusing as doing like a bounce land, because you're tapping two sources to get two colors. It just happens to turn it into the colors that you want. All right, so our next section.
It's untapped with downside.
Yeah, so uh, we're going to start off with something that's in an older frame.
Mog Hollow.
So this one, it comes in untapped, and you can tap it for colorless, perfectly fine. Um, but if you want to add a red or a green to your mana pool, it doesn't untap on the next untap step.
That's what we call a pause land.
So it just kind of slows you down. Now, if you don't need a lot of color in your deck, but you want to kind of fix it in the deck some, then this might be a good option for you. Let's see. There's also very similar to this is the Pinecrest
Pinecrest
Ridge. Basically the same thing. You can tap it for colorless, and then you can tap it for red and green, but it doesn't untap during the next untap step. Now, if you have something that automatically untaps lands, then this would be fine.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So now this next one, Fungal Reaches. This one was kind of hard to put anywhere. We still put it here because you can dork around with this a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can tap it for colorless. You can put a counter on it. And then later on, if you've got a bunch of counters on it, you can pull off a whole bunch of counters all at once and have a whole bunch of mana.
Yeah.
Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that each turn you are using its ability to put a storage counter on there. You know, using two lands, to in this case. As long as you get one on there, and then you have some ability to proliferate, then you can start, adding
Yeah.
counters, lots of counters. So this is a tricky land. In some cases, unless you have that proliferate ability, this isn't going to be that good. But putting counters on cards and stuff and doing proliferate, that's a very popular, sort of way of playing the game. So I think you'll see this a little more often. All right, so now we're going to jump up in price because
Cragtown
Pathway. Yeah, so the Cragtown Pathway.
Yeah, it's a flippy.
Yeah, it's a flippy. So that's what he calls it. Other people call it a modal DFC, modal dual face card. So it comes in as either red or green. These are it's like having a red green card in your hand and just choosing one, tossing the other one out. So the reason why these are above $3, $4 is because they're only in that one set. I think they're going to be reprinting these. They're very popular, so the prices will fluctuate on them, the secondary market prices. All right. Now we're going to go to a colorless with filter. That's the Firelit Thicket. Now this is one that you don't see very often.
Um,
You can tap it for colorless, or you can put a color in there, and you can get either combination of colors. Uh, it's $13 at this moment. So yeah, actually, price fluctuates a lot. So it's almost $14 at the moment. Um, it kind of depends on what modern decks are being played, what commander decks are being played, that sort of thing.
sure.
So um, it's really nice. And in this case, you are still tapping two lands to get two colors, but you're fixing the colors. Uh, so it's pretty high up on our list. Okay, we're gonna drop the price down for the Untapped Lands, but for a price. So the first one,
One is Game Trail.
Game Trail, right there. Okay, so as it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a mountain or a forest card from your hand. And if you don't, it enters tapped. So as long as you think about it beforehand and go, okay, well, I don't want to put down my mountain right now because I want to show a mountain. I'll put this down and then I'll show the mountain. Then they'll know I have a mountain. That's a bit of a downside. But really, to have both colors out fairly early, yeah, that's really great. Next one, Cinderglade. And this is Fastland, or yeah, I think.
They call it a check land.
Yeah, it checks to see how many lands you have on the battlefield. Some people call it a fast land because if you are doing this early in the game, when you don't have that much, many lands out, then it comes in untapped. Otherwise, it comes in tapped. But it has to be. Actually, no, no, no. I got it backwards. Sorry. Sorry, I got this all screwed up. uh, you have to have two or more basic lands out. So yeah, it's still a check land. I'm thinking about another one. And the one I'm thinking about is actually our next one.
And our next
one is the Rootbound Crag.
Yeah.
Now this one checks to see if you have a mountain or forest in play.
Yeah.
And it's still an inexpensive land. No, this one's not an inexpensive land. This is $6 right now. The prices jumped up. They were like $2 not too long ago. They were pretty cheap because we got a whole bunch of them back when they were cheap. Maybe this isn't the one I'm thinking of. Maybe it's the next one I'm thinking of. The Copperline Gorge.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is definitely the fast lane. It enters the battlefield unless you control two or fewer other lands. Doesn't have to be basics. This is.
We call it a fast land?
Yeah, this one's definitely a fast land. But in a sense, it still checks to see if you have lands.
Yeah.
So that's just one of those things where it gets so difficult to come up with names and that everybody understands because it's just it's kind of fast, I suppose. I don't know. All right. All right. Now the ones that most people will know right off the top of their head is something like the Stomping Ground. What's this?
It's a shock land. You can go to the bay if you don't have a 1-drop. Uh, then you can shock yourself. Pay 2.
Yeah, pay 2 life, and it comes in untapped. Now this is a mountain forest, so when you are searching for a mountain or a forest land, you can get this as long as it doesn't say basic land. So this is what a lot of people fetch for. Now we've got another one which is similar, and a lot of people think it's better in one sense, and it is. I mean, you can tap it for colorless, the Carpulsian Forest, or if you need a color, then
You get hit 1.
yeah, so you get pinged.
Ping.
Maybe they ought to call it, instead of a pain land, they should call it a ping land. What do you think?
A ping.
Yeah, you can ping you for one. All right,
Ping.
all right. This is yeah, uh, it's okay when you can decide that you're going to take the damage. Now we've got another one that I don't know what people really call this. We have something that we call it an unpain land, because it's basically the same thing, except instead of you taking 1 life, you're giving 1 life to your opponents.
Yeah, it's a hug.
Yeah, kind of a hug thing. It's like, oh, hey, I'm going to keep pumping you up. Yeah, that's kind of fun. But it's still
Make you.
yeah. All right, so now this next one, the Spire Garden, is enters battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. So this is a very specific land that's for certain formats, multiplayer formats like
Commander.
Oathbreaker. Yeah, there's other formats that people don't really play anymore, like Tiny Leaders and stuff like that.
What's that?
They don't play it anymore for a reason. But there's other multiplayer formats. So this is kind of the oh yeah, it comes on Untapped because I'm using it in a multiplayer format. These are also called the Battle Bond lands because they came out in Battle Bond. They have also come out in Commander Legends as well because you generally use them in Commander. All right,
Yeah.
now we've got 2 more sections left.
It is fetches.
Yeah, okay, fetches. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up
Arid Mesa.
yeah, so you pay 1 life, you sacrifice it, and you can search your library for a mountain or a plains card. This isn't the colors we're looking for. Actually, it is. Because you can fetch any of your red-green cards with an Arid Mesa. You could get a Wooded Foothills, which would allow you to get a red or green. Or, hey, you could do something like the Verdant Catacombs. That's a black or green. So any of those would search for a land that you would need. You're just paying 1 life, sacrificing it. You basically chunk through your deck, get the lands out that you want. If it's a tap land or a shock land or whatever, you can get it in play pretty quick. And so that's kind of the downside of the fetches. The upside is, I mean, it's a land, but you can't tap it for any mana unless you got another card that says otherwise. So there's some cards that will say, hey, all your lands tap for red. And it's like, okay, then they all tap for red. So even your Evolving Wilds tap for red. All right, so the last land. Can you guess?
Oh, I wonder. Tagya.
Tagya. It's an original dual land. Yeah.
Comes into play.
Comes into play, and you can use it for both colors. Now, let me tell you, back in 1993, when I was getting these lands, and I've got a pile of them. I think we've got almost 50 of the dual lands. People were throwing these lands away. One, I think it was probably the design of the you look right there where it's got the little spirally thing. That
That makes
it just kind of,
throws
yeah,
people off.
it throws people off. The other thing is back then people were doing monocolored decks. We didn't have a lot of cards to start off with. In fact, being on the East Coast, we were rationed how many packs we could buy per month or per week, um, and basic lands were uh, were
Rare.
well, they were pretty rare, but people were doing monocolored decks. So to them, this just didn't really help having the two colors on there. Now, eventually, when people started doing multiple colors, then these became really good. Then Wizards of the Coast said they're never going to reprint these, and so the prices of these are pretty high on the secondary market. You can't open any packs to find them unless you want to find original unlimited or beta or alpha. But those packs are going to be super, super expensive to get. So those are the two color lands, uh, just from worst to best.
And
So
hope you enjoyed this. I put down in the comments, and I have more videos coming out soon. So until then, Rhino out.